Hi, and welcome to the Unstuck Edit with me, Gail Chisholm. Today, I want to talk about decision fatigue and how that could be keeping you stuck, and some suggestions and tips on how to get out of it, and also touch on how it might be showing up. So, signs that you might actually have decision fatigue. I'm talking about this week because I was flicking through social media and I'm really annoyed because I can't remember the person to credit them. And they were talking about decision fatigue and the signs of it. And I think there was an app that they were promoting, is what I want to say. So the article was really interesting. And then it was suddenly like, and download this app and it's going to help you make decisions. And don't get me wrong, as if you've listened to last week's episode, you will know that I do enjoy a bit of AI to help expand my horizons, challenge my thinking, support me with things that I want to create. But the trick for me is to ensure that there's an authenticity, is to come back and use my discernment and agency and my intuition to trust myself. And I think that's why I wanted to talk about this and not promote an app to help you make decisions, because for me, a lot of this is coming back to yourself and coming back to trusting your intuition, and that's like a muscle, like the ability to make decisions, to have boundaries. It's something that you have to practice. And I think if you just lean on an app, whilst it could help you in the short term, I'm not sure it's like, certainly for me, I feel that you will get further and faster and longer if you can build this skill yourself. And also, it comes from who you are. And because the other thing that I came on my social feed was an article about how AI slowly has scope creep for us all, because it gets you might go on it to with a specific purpose, to create a specific thing or to make a specific decision. And in that whole challenge my thinking, be like a human, blah, 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 is it actually gets you, you end up creating or doing or having an outcome that isn't actually what you intended. And I think in order for us to have agency and discernment and to use these things as a tool, we still need to come back to ourselves and work our own muscles so we can say no to the AI. No, I want you to do this, or I want you to do that, or help me do this, or actually just come back to self and make the decisions from your own intuition. So we make thousands of decisions a day. And one of the ways decision fatigue sometimes shows up for me is like, especially when I used to, in fact, it's not even when I used to work in a corporate job, having your own business, you have to make all of the decisions, right? And you're deciding on everything from like, do I need more post-it notes, to what am I spending the money on? Should I go and find this, or do I need to market that? And what's my content for this month? Everything. And then you come home, and I find that if you live alone, you're making all the decisions on how you live your life. I find that, so I live with somebody now, and I used to be married, so I used to live with someone, and I would find that you go, what do you want for tea? I don't know, whatever you feel like. And I would just be like, I cannot, I cannot make this decision. Do you know how many decisions I have made today, and I just can't make it? Just please, just take this one away from me. And um, it doesn't necessarily cause arguments, but I can see like my blood pressure rising, the stress levels escalating, and it's just sometimes feels too much, right? So maybe that example is you can relate to that. But let's talk about some other signs that you may be experiencing some decision fatigue. And I laugh every time I think about this, of the amount that I can hold my hand up to every now and again, the amount that I can hold my hand up to and say, yeah, that's me. But then hopefully that's why you're listening, right? Because I am here to walk the walk with you and to say share things that have worked for me. And also these chats always help me figure out maybe I need to take a different perspective on things. So um number one, you are procrastinating over teeny tiny little decisions. So sometimes you're like, oh, I make great decisions. I've decided to move down from Scotland to England. I have decided to leave my job. I have decided to get married, to get divorced, to get a dog, to have a baby. Like big, major life decisions. But then when it comes to what are you going to have for your tea, or what color should you paint your toenails, or should you buy that new mascara that's a replacement for exactly the same one that you have already got, like you'll spend 20 minutes deciding whether this is what to do, what's the right color for your nails. You might even chat to somebody to help you decide. You might be like, or you might even get your pros and cons list out, or what, or you're chatting over, well, we could have this, or do you want to have takeout for dinner? And suddenly you've burned half an hour and then realize that you're really, really hungry and all you're going to do now is eat a ton of chocolate. So number one, procrastination for tiny decisions. I'm laughing because this shows this less so now, because I'm more in tune and I recognize when I'm having decision fatigue and when I'm not. But if I reflect back on, particularly in my corporate world, also like, I think I've touched on this before, like human design. So I'm a projector, which often means that, my energy can get depleted. I live in a generator world. And so and then working in corporate, I was working in a generator where I'll come home and I would be exhausted. And I'd be like, I just can't make this decision. It was like one decision too many. So a second way this could be shown up for you is where everything feels equally as urgent as everything else. So you're struggling to prioritize, and that'll mean things like your what color to paint my fingernails is feeling equally as important as where to go on holiday, or to have that other child, or to change your job, or to cut all your hair off. Like everything, there's no ability to prioritize the degrees of importance. You might also, so a third way, you might find yourself avoiding making decisions altogether. So you're having avoidance, and that could be so. Instead of making a decision, you're maybe leaving emails unanswered, whether that's in work life or personal life, or you're not booking appointments. And I'm just like, that's I haven't booked Hamish a haircut. I did a bit of a DIY job and I'm like, he really needs a haircut. Or you're putting off launching something when it comes to your business, or you're delaying saying yes or no to an invitation. And it's not because you don't necessarily know what to do. It's because the actual act of deciding feels exhausting. Equally, fourthly, you might find that decision fatigue is causing you to make impulsive decisions. So on one hand, you might be like, can't make a decision. And then on the other hand, you're like, bish, bash, bosh, let's just decide this. And you're just making rash, quick decisions. So for example, impulse buying on clothing, impulse buying on makeup. You're being influenced on TikTok left, right, and center, and you've suddenly got a whole house full of tat that you don't really need. Or it could be that you're committing your time to something that you are later regretting, whether that is, going out with people, or you've been asked to like volunteer for something, or you've offered to do something because it's the easiest thing to do. And then maybe it could be like you've decided to abandon something or stop doing something because that's easier than deciding what comes next. And that could show up in work, but it could equally be things like decorating your house. And then all of a sudden you just are living with your house looking like half done because you've not been able to make a decision. You've just abandoned something because you're like, well, that's rubbish. You might also be finding, so I think this is what, number 5, maybe? that you're becoming emotionally reactive. And that's a good one. Going back to my what to make for dinner example, like a small inconvenience can suddenly feel absolutely massive. And so like your tolerance for uncertainty can shrink. So that the dinner one's a great example for me, where I'm just like, I decide, blah, 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 and then suddenly like everything's blown up and I'm off to walk the dog to cool off, and all it was trying to decide what to have for dinner. Sixthly, if that's a word, you may be constantly second guessing yourself. So maybe you've made the decision and then you're replaying it, going over it in your head, thinking, was I right? Should I have waited? Should I have done this? Maybe I should have chosen that instead of this, or maybe I need to go and change that decision and do something else. Seventh, you are losing creativity. So creativity needs space, and time and regulated nervous system, like, so allowing you to like tune in. Um, and then, but if you're trying to be creative and whatever that may be, um, if you've got decision fatigue, that is kind of the thing that's consuming you. And it's like you don't have the mental capacity to create anything because you're going through all your internal admin and to-do list. When thinking about decision fatigue, so those are sort of ways in which it might be playing out, but actually it's not just around what's in your head. Is the decision fatigue can actually progress into having or to manifest in physical form. So you may be noticing brain fog. Now, I am a woman of a certain age, and menopause and cancer treatment did bring a lot of brain fog. But sometimes that brain fog isn't as a consequence of the medical or the things that are changing in my body. It's actually because I'm in this decision fatigue and I'm exhausted. You might also find that if you've been having a lot of headaches recently, you've been having poor sleep and waking up in the night, or inability to fall asleep, equally tension in your body, particularly things like in your jaw, maybe you're clenching your teeth. Are your shoulders up at your ears? Are you feeling like you're just like a tense ball of energy? You might be like feeling wired but tired, like, um, or you might be having cravings for things like caffeine or sugar, or you're emotionally eating, or you're having like, I used to call it, I could tell when I was in this place because I would dip into what I described as my French lifestyle. And that would be where I would have the glass of wine more frequently. And I suppose it's like, it's a crutch really, in the same way as I would reach for maybe a chocolate or a bag of crisps or something. It's emotional eating. And then you might also be finding that you've got a reduced motivation. This whole decision fatigue is actually just consuming you so much that you just have no energy for anything. And then these things are impacting into like your nervous system state. It's keeping you longer in the states where when we move into stress, and into like the parasympathetic system is kicking in and the dorsal vagal system's kicking in. Like, we're not designed to be staying in those states. Like, a lot of these things were back in the ancient world where we're only supposed to like dip in to save our life and then come back into the ventral vagal state. But if you are staying in that state constantly, that's like flooding your system with hormones. So your body is staying stressed for longer. And yeah, you're just, it's compounding, because then your inability to make decisions just spirals. Emotionally, this can also impact you. So over time, you might find increased feelings of overwhelm, anxiety, self-doubt, irritability, feelings of guilt, feeling like you're failing, and a loss of confidence. And then also one of the things that that can show up when people mistake decision fatigue is for laziness, and it's like you're not lazy at all. It's like your brain just isn't able, like this processing capacity at the moment, the minute is just gone. And it's almost like sometimes like you might be feeling a bit like you're just shut down, and it's like one decision too many. So what can cause some of this decision fatigue and this sort of, it's all under this umbrella of being stuck, right? Often it's not one thing for decision fatigue. More often than not, you might find it's building from layers. So maybe you're like, it's lots of work decisions. Maybe you've got some financial uncertainty. Maybe you've got caring responsibilities. Maybe you've got some health stuff going on. Maybe you're trying to look after yourself, but you don't have the time. Or then there's expectations socially on you, or like you just feel like you've got no time. Or maybe there's there's too many choices. You might find you are someone who enjoys perfectionism, and I use the word enjoy in inverted commas. You might be an A type. These types of things that are kind of pushing you. You might find you've got this fear of making mistakes or getting it wrong. And you might also be finding that there's just constant digital interruptions. And I should have said, actually, one of the signs where I was saying that things to notice where you might be feeling that decision fatigue, it could be manifesting as scrolling, like this constant scrolling. That's a dopamine hit, but it's like trying to avoid. So how to recover, I suppose. So let's talk about tips and ways that you can get better at making decisions rather than reaching for another app to help you. And so this is really around taking a look at how you can reduce the number of decisions that your brain is having to make. So firstly, you can look at creating defaults. When I was doing some research for this pod, it came up that apparently Steve Jobs famously wore the same clothes every day. And it wasn't a style thing. It was a mental energy and capacity. Like he just didn't want to spend the time making decisions on what to wear. Interestingly, this is where having a capsule wardrobe would really help in this sense, because you have certainty that everything in your wardrobe would work together, everything fits, and it's a streamlined thing. You're reducing the number of decisions that you have to make every day. So when you open your wardrobe, it feels easy, and oftentimes that's the first thing you're doing, right? You're getting up, having a shower, and getting dressed, ready for the day. So if you can start your day with more ease and flow, it will help you. And even if you think back to sometimes, like when I was at school, there was a school uniform as easy decision to make when you got up. Some places where, like, if you have to wear a uniform, you don't have to do that, but you can create, quote unquote, a uniform for yourself, which minimizes the stress that you have. If you want, in fact, maybe I'll do a little video on like editing wardrobes and capsule wardrobes, like creating more like a wardrobe that'll work for you, and then also thinking about like how do you get rid of the things, because weirdly, in order to reach this point of a wardrobe being working for you and with you, is you need to make decisions on what to keep and what to get rid of. And that's sometimes where the source of the decision fatigue. So it's almost like, facing the task and doing it, and then on the other side is calmness, ease, flow. Everything's in alignment. So you start your day at peace. So maybe you can pop in the comments or or send me a message if you'd like a video on that. I'll maybe do that. How to get your wardrobe unstuck. So things you can ask yourself. So this might also be, so we've looked at wardrobe, but you can create structure and defaults in things like your eating habits, or like the fixing your days for workout. So you're or creating a morning routine. And so that kind of creating those defaults will help reduce the number of decisions or micro decisions that you're having to make all the time, which will then help you when it does come to making decisions. Secondly, let's think about how you decide one. So instead of, sometimes this is the questions we're asking ourselves is making the decision fatigue worse. So I resonate with this one quite a lot, where I might be in my head going, should I go for a run today instead of just walking the dog? So instead of asking myself a question, which then means I have to make a decision on it, is I could, I'm laughing, this is where I was referring to. I love these me just riffing and having conversations, because as I say, it does shine a light for me where I get to be I get to take some of the learnings myself. But instead of asking questions on should I run, should I exercise today, is I could make a decision that is, I exercise on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And weirdly, this is where actually, like for me, I love netball, obviously coaching and umpire, but I love the playing of it. It's a team sport. I find that I show up better for myself when it's part of a team. And when I was training, in fact, I still am a wee bit now, but like we have, there's training where it's like the social netball's on a Monday and then games are on a Thursday. So I don't have to make a decision on when I play netball. It's set. I play netball on Mondays and Thursdays. I coach on Tuesdays. Their games are going to be on Thursdays. It's Saturdays. So that's decided once. I don't have to think about it. And then I get to show up on Mondays, have fun, play, chat to some pals. I get to show up on a Thursday, play. So I'm incorporating my exercise. So there might be a way for you to think about how you can just create that rhythm or structure into your week around whatever it might be. And so you're not asking yourself questions, you're making a statement around what you do on a particular day. And so that daily decision has just disappeared. Thirdly, look at reducing the options. So when you think, oh, I've got this to do, blah, 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 and you might be like, your brain might be firing left, right, and center. And you might be thinking that, well, there's 10 different things here. So choose 3. So instead of like browsing endlessly, this is where weirdly, like, you know, that way where you're thinking, you're sat with your partner and you're like, what do you want to watch tonight? And you've suddenly spent half an hour searching through all the TV guides, all the different apps, and you're no further forward. That can feel a bit like overwhelm. So like instead of just browse, just choose 3 things. It might be like, what do you want to watch tonight? If nobody knows, it could be like, well, let's either pick a movie on Netflix, or let's pick a new series on Disney, or let's watch a piece of sport on Sky. And then you've got 3 things. Or if you're a generator or you live with someone who's a generator, take it down to 2 options, this or that, and tune in to your gut instinct. So is it that you want to watch, so this generators in particular, like this or that, and you can just tell and go with like your first response. It could be like, do you want to watch netball or cricket? Do you want to watch EastEnders or Coronation Street? You know, and especially like for me, because I'm not a generator, but sometimes I find it difficult to make decisions because I don't necessarily have a specific opinion, but I have a strong people pleasing tendency. So for me, where I might be like, I don't want to make this decision, but if I whittle it down from a partner and say option A or option B, both of which I don't really mind, that lets him pick. Your brain does enjoy some constraints. Like when things are endless, it's like your brain's just going to run and run and run. So see where you could do that to reduce the options, whether it's things like watching TV, or if you're going to scroll, it's like create some boundaries. It's like after dinner, I scroll for 10 minutes on Instagram. That's it. Set an alarm and then you're done. You don't have to keep going. So number 4, let's have a think about separating thinking from doing. So This is about you setting aside time where you make strategic decisions, and then the rest of the week you have the opportunity to just execute those decisions. This is something that is a good one if you've got a business. I mean, to be honest, running a house is like a business, especially if you've got lots of people in it. Like, think about it as like you're going to set aside your CEO hour, and you are going to just make some strategic decisions and then execute them. I have found, if you know me, I love a planner. I am a stationery geek, and I've been on a planner quest, and I've found one that actually, I found one last year that I really loved, but the size was prohibitive. And it was a Laurel Denise planner, and I felt like how it was just how my brain worked. But it wasn't very mobile, and if I wanted a smaller one, my handwriting needed to be miniature. After many hours spent on this, is where the procrastination for me would come in. But I think it was, I was on, I knew what I wanted. I was just trying to find it. And I've now found a brand called Hemlock and Oak, and I really like the planner. It works for my brain. And this is about knowing yourself, because sometimes it's easier to make decisions when you know what is your after kind of. And I'm going to buy this one for next year. But one thing that I really like about having a good planner and a system that worked for you is I sit down on a Monday, sometimes a Sunday, and I look forward for the week. And I have become better at time blocking because I work for myself. That means my diary is sometimes very available. Um, and it can become easy to just get lost in stuff. So I sit down once a week and create time in my diary where I'm going to work on specific tasks and specific things. So it's like at the start of the week, I've made the decision in an hour with a cup of coffee, and I'm like, bish, bash, bosh, this is the broad outline of my week. Obviously, things can come in and change that, or, you know, things might take longer than I'd intended, but the heavy lifting, I'm not then every day sitting there going, oh, what am I going to do today? You might find that this is even like when I was in my corporate world, my first sort of like, I'd come into the office, I'd get my coffee, to have my breakfast with me, and over coffee and my cereal, I would just spend some time, like, brain dump it, prioritize. Like, these kind of planning tools can be really helpful, but you can then use those not just in work. You can think about like your life, especially maybe if you've got, you doing some house renovations, or, sitting and planning some stuff out. So it's like you've made the decision. You don't have to keep making the decision. So the next one is around working on perfectionism, because perfectionism really does burn a lot of mental energy, and it can bring additional stress and fatigue and, constant overthinking, and it can stop you from actually progressing and getting where you would want to be, and it can keep you stuck. So this is around like things being good enough, or quite often, if you listen to the pod with me and Sandra, is we'll talk about progress over perfection, because we're both inclined towards perfectionism. So, but we have to really interrupt this process. Like, this is, some of this isn't easy. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. But if you don't start doing something or taking some action, the decision fatigue will just become more consuming and manifest itself even more physically. So trying to have the progress over perfection motto, or good enough, is a good start in place to help you. And you can do that as affirmations, like if you journal, or even just like you can, in the course of a day, is like if you're working on something, you could ask yourself, is this like, I've got a decision to make here. Is the outcome of this going to matter in 6 months? If the decision is no, choose and move on. And I was working with Robin, who we met doing the Playing Big facilitators training, and we were, what do you call them, like little buddies, lab buddies, and we have just kept doing this, and we connect roughly once a week. Anyway, and we do reciprocal coaching, and one week I was talking to her about something on my website to do with standalone styling services, and I was just feeling like standalone styling services, like for me, I get so much more pleasure about it, supporting people like this underneath the surface and going like doing some of the inner work to really build confidence and then really like engage with the inner outer. And I love that, because if you do some of the inner work, your outer world, like the shine that you will have is just tenfold. Anyway, I was talking to her about something on my website, and she then asked me this question, and she was like, is this something, now I'm sure she talked about it as like doors. So it's like door A, where you go through and you can't reopen the door again. It shuts behind you. And, you know, so if you make this decision and go through door A, that is the door that once it's shut, it's shut. You can't go back. But then door B is like you can go through it, and it's one that you can go back. So it's like maybe a swinging door or a revolving door. And I'd say to her, I was like, well, if I choose to take this down, of course I can just make the pages live again. And so it really helped me make the decision and move forward, because I realized that in terms of the consequence, if I changed my mind, it was really easy to unpick that decision. And so understanding whether this decision will matter in 6 months, or whether it's like if you walk through the door, is this something that's going to close behind you and there's no going back if you change your mind? And are you okay with that? Or is this actually something that if you do change your mind, you can get back, or you can choose again, you can do something different? And it really helps me make the decision much more quickly, because I was like, I am procrastinating over something that I can change my mind on tomorrow. I can make the pages, I can take the pages off live, and then I can put them back on live. So ask yourself that question. That might help you make some decisions quicker. It might help you move beyond the perfectionism, because you can be like, you can wait and wait and wait for perfection to occur, which will it ever? Will you ever be satisfied? Or you can reflect and go, right, well, I can move on now, I can do this, and then if I need to, I can unpick it. In order to help make decisions, space, capacity for your mind to just be, where it's not overthinking, it's not churning on internal admin, a to-do list isn't going round and round in your head, you're not thinking about the 6 million decisions that it feels like you need to do. So in order for your intuition to help guide you to make a decision that you can feel confident in, which when we were talking about the fatigue, one of the things that gives us decision fatigue is an inability to make a decision. And this is the bit really for me that goes back to you don't really need an app to help you with this, right? If you can create some capacity for your brain and body to rest, for you to regulate your nervous system, to create just a little bit of like freedom, peace, tranquility, you will then be able to hear your intuition much louder, and you will begin to be far more confident in making decisions. You'll make them quickly, intuitively, correctly, with clarity, without regret. So even if you're like, actually, that decision with hindsight maybe wasn't the right one, but you can reflect on that and say, but I've learned this. You can be curious, you can be experimental, you can feel it's not a this or that, or you don't feel that you're going to be bound by this. You're not, all of the things we've talked about. If you can create this peace and space for your brain and your body, or to get out of your brain and into your body, you will, I'm not here for like, you know, I'm not going to tell you how you're going to feel or anything like that. But the science tells us that when our body and our nervous system are in a normal, regulated state, you can hear your intuition, you can be more confident, you can follow what lights you up, you can live a calmer, more clear way. So how do you do that? Now, obviously, if you've been here a while, you'll know that I do embodiment, which is coming out of your brain, somatic based, yoga inspired, coming out of your head into your body. Obviously, I love that. That's why I went and learned how to teach it. And I'm continuing my teaching. I find it something that gives me mental space. But other ways you can do this. walking. Just go out for a walk in nature. No podcasts, no music, no headphones. I mean, sometimes, yeah, you want to go and do that because it can bring you down. But if you can just lean into what's happening in nature, um, breathing and breath work. So you can, if you sign up to my newsletter, you get access to the Unstuck emergency kit, and it's actually a nostril breathing exercise that physically will help calm your nervous system down, which will help lower the blood pressure, bring down the stress levels. Breathing is a massive, simple tool that you have access to at any time, and it can really help just bring you back into a sense of calm. Now, if you don't want to do any complicated ones, just simple, deep breaths in through the nose, and then ideally you can go out through the nose or out through the mouth. And actually, if you elongate the exhale, so we inhale maybe for a count of 4 and exhale for a count of 6, that's going to help cool and calm down your system. Makes a big difference. And you don't even have to do it, like I would say a minimum of just 3 breaths, like 3 long deep slow breaths. So if you find maybe you can't make the decision, or like you're having that repeated what are we having for tea conversation, just take yourself out of the room, nip to the bathroom, sit on the loo, feel the floor beneath your feet, pop your hands on the backs of your legs, just feel your body, close your eyes, and then do 3 long deep slow breathing, like really deep into the belly. And you can pause at the top if you want to, and then exhale it out, and at least 3, and it's just going to diffuse the situation. Other things: yoga, gardening, art, creativity, dance, movement, singing, humming is also another good one. Just sitting and looking out the window, taking yourself out of the situation. Meditation, and you can do guided meditation, quiet meditation. You could sit and listen to gongs, listen to nature sounds, you name it, whatever floats your boat. So yeah. You can also think about protecting your morning. So if you find that the start of the day is where you're kind of a bit, you can then look at, we've talked about wardrobes, but you can also think about, are you someone that is clearer and better to make decisions earlier in the day, or you might be in the afternoon, but if you are in the morning, make things easier, carve out some time for the conversations, the creativity, the making the decisions, and then do some routine admin later. But albeit it says a morning routine, it's really figuring out when works for you. Embodied decision making. So this builds a little bit on how you're going to create the space, but also it's sometimes our decision fatigue isn't necessarily because we don't know the answer, but it's because we're in our head so much. So if you're thinking you've got to make a decision, so let's say it's a micro decision, like what am I going to have for tea? And you know that you have tea every night or dinner every night, is go for a walk before. So that's where having a dog's quite helpful, because I can then think about it out on the walk, and actually that movement and things will help, because then I can come in and then say, instead of what do you want for tea, it could be like, I'm going to make such and such, or how do you fancy such and such for dinner? So you're coming at it slightly different. Equally, movement can help before you make a decision. That could be gentle, so just sitting and leaning, or you could be like, I just need to dance it out, get rid of the energy, tune into what your body's asking for. Our bodies know way before our brain knows. So the more you can tune into your body, the more you'll actually have a lot of the answers there. So again, one doesn't need an app. Slow breathing, talked about breath work already. You can also really tune into your body and your space, and like you could just like pop your hands on your heart or one on your belly and just ask yourself, like, which you can ask which option gives me a sense of expansion, or which creates contraction. But actually, so that might be, do I want fish for dinner? What can you feel in your body? Or What would I like chicken for dinner? Do I want to go out for dinner? So you're starting to tune into your body. It's telling you. You can also use it's called a body compass. You can use like pendulum. Like, so if you're, if you like a bit of the woo, you can use a pendulum, and that's like using it over your hand. Maybe I'll do a video on that at some point. For yes or no. They only work with binary yes no questions. So that would be, do I want chicken for tea? And it'll tell you, because it's just your body knows, so it communicates. But you could also like if you stand up and ground your feet in, this is a really good one. The body compass is so you can start to know when your body is saying yes and when your body is saying no. So you can stand up, ground your feet in, close your eyes if it feels comfortable, and you can say, show me yes. Now, for me, show me yes is like my body feels like it's falling forward, and then I can say, show me no, and my body feels like it's being pushed back. So then I can use that to be like, do I want chicken for tea? Is my body falling forward, or is it falling back? Or does it not really know, or does it not really care, like where I'm not moving? But you can use that for bigger decisions as well. And all of this is designed to come back to the body, because the body knows before the brain. So you ask the body first. The compass things are really useful. Like, it really is a great way to tune into your intuition. And it, over time, you might even find you don't need to be standing up to do it. You can, like, so for me, I can feel something in my throat, I think, is for no, or constriction in my throat for no, and then more down sort of heart, solar plexus areas for yes. And I did some shopping, Christmas shopping, using this, because I was like in TK Maxx and I was like overwhelmed with all the stuff. And so I was like, right. And I would sort of hold something in my hand for a certain person, and I would be like, shall I get this for their Christmas? And I would just tune into, obviously I was saying it in my head. I wasn't looking like a total lunatic in the middle of the shop. And I could just start to feel in my body, and then I'd be like, no, that's a no. And then I would pick up something random, and I'd be like, shall I get this? And it would be like, yes. And all my Christmas presents went down so well. I can't even begin to tell you, because I was using my intuition, really, ultimately. It wasn't some higher force, it was my intuition telling me. Sometimes, of course, you do need to do some careful thinking, big decisions and things, but you can tune into your body as well, and like, and see what your body is saying and what information it is giving you that maybe your mind had been drowning out, and then you can you can be balanced on it. So um if you're looking for like a really just simple reset, or something that you can use daily to try and help you wade through all of the decisions that you're needing to make, you can just take a piece of paper and divide it into 3 columns. And one column is going to be labeled decide today, one is going to be decide later, and one is to be, say, doesn't need deciding. So you're going to take the things that you need to make a decision on, and then the stuff that is in the today column are essential, urgent choices only. The things that are to be decided later, go through them, and then, so obviously those are the non-urgent ones that you don't need to decide on today. You're going to take them and then schedule them in at some point, and that might be that, well, I need to decide on that tomorrow. And then if you've got anything that's in that doesn't actually need deciding on, just let it go. This is really useful to decide on the things, that the noise that's in your brain that actually isn't something that you need to make a decision on. And then that helps lift any weight that you might be feeling. So decision fatigue isn't simply then about making loads and loads of choices. It's about, the decision fatigue is coming because you're making choices while carrying some uncertainty, responsibility, emotional weights, and your nervous system can be feeling under strain. And when it's under strain, any decision can feel really massive. So it's not necessarily about becoming tougher. It's just recognizing that perhaps you are experiencing some decision fatigue, and using some of the tools that I've talked about today to help you move out of decision fatigue. And that will hopefully also help you get a little bit unstuck, because sometimes what's keeping us stuck is the fact that we just can't make a decision. We just feel that everything feels overwhelming, too many decisions, or you're being impulsive in one area and procrastinating in another. And again, I'll just leave you with a final advocating for coming back into the body, tuning in, tune into nature, tune into yourself, and you know the decisions that are deep down. And if you're finding that actually you know what the decision you need to make is, but you're worried about the consequence of that, that's a very different thing. You can work on that as well. But we're just, for today, let's get some of those decisions made. And with that, I'm about to go and think, what am I going to have for my tea? It's just never ending, is it? Anyway, I hope today's episode has been helpful for you to identify if you're having decision fatigue, help you understand ways that it could actually be manifesting for you, and ways that you can help yourself get out of this decision fatigue, get yourself a little bit unstuck, or a lot unstuck, depending on how this goes for you, and to realize that you don't really need an app to help you. You need your body, and to clear the channel and tune in. Thank you so much for being here, and until the next episode, I will see you all very soon. Bye.